Well, welcome to those of you who are here in person at the UU Church, and to those of you who are on Zoom, welcome. I'm Teresa Miller for any newcomers who are here tonight. So for those of you who don't know Matt, I would like to just introduce him to you. For many of you, he is not unfamiliar. He's an active member of IMCC and has been so since 2018. So when he moved back to Charlottesville after having been an undergraduate student here, he works at UVA with the employees' well-being program. And currently he's a member of the Young Adult Sangha and serving on the board for IMCC. Matt says he first met the Dharma as a UVA undergrad through a class on Buddhist meditation. And he's been practicing and teaching yoga since 1996, when he completed his first training in Yogaville, the Integral Yoga Teacher Training Program. And I met Matt in 2019 when we both attended a symposium at Serenity Ridge. And what I remember is listening to Matt ask these very intelligent, intriguing, articulate questions. And I thought, I want to meet this guy. So I went up to him and introduced myself. And then lo and behold, he shows up at IMCC not long afterwards. So Matt goes on to say that IMCC, he feels, complements his primary practice in the Himalayan Buddhist tradition. I say we're fortunate that he is in our community and that he was willing to take the teacher's seat tonight. So gratitude for that. And what else do you need to know about him? Well, he likes hiking, hanging out with friends, his dog, and he hosts a classical piano radio show on WTJU. So tonight's programming is going to be a little bit different from how we traditionally do things. I'll do a short guided practice just to allow us to settle a bit. And then Matt's going to share the theory and the practice of somatic mindfulness that's rooted in the Himalayan Buddhist tradition. And you're going to hear about the 4 dimensions of embodiment as described in yogic Buddhism, and learn how an acronym, GROUND, can be used as a mnemonic to reconnect you to the wisdom of your body. After Matt's presentation, we'll take a short break like we usually do, about 5 minutes, and come back, and then Matt will guide us in a practice of this ground. And we'll leave time at the end of the evening so that you can reflect on what has been your experience, what questions have arisen during the evening. We often start our evenings with the reflection that we are here on this land that has been lived upon, been the home of so many different beings throughout the ages. And I came across a quote from a Native American. This is a collection of poems by Joy Harjo, who is a Native American poet. And this is what is said: when you act and speak, you must think of all your relatives, known and unknown. You must also remember the plants, the animals, the living things, and the ancient ones, those that have gone before you. Sitting here tonight together, and coming home to the body, to the life that's right here, right now. To this breath coming in, this one going out. Aware of your connection to the ground, the support of the earth beneath you. Aware of any gratitude arising from these connections, this felt sense of ground. In dwelling, live close to the land. In thinking, keep to the simple. Pausing now, Stopping in just this moment, savoring what's here. Imagining a bell ringing now.
Once again, welcome everyone. It's really an honor to be up here, and thank you, Teresa, for that more than kind introduction and bringing back that fond memory at Serenity Ridge a few years ago. Well, welcome to everyone. I have one other question. Would you consider yourself to have a body-based practice, whether that's yoga or Tai Chi, maybe hiking, swimming, running? If we could just raise a hand, maybe. Right, good to know. So there might be, it might feel like a lot of material this evening. I do want to say I did prepare a handout, which we'll have available afterwards, so you won't have to worry about scribbling things down. And we are going to try to make that available to our online Sangha as well. Bring up my notes here. Right, so in the write-up for this evening's talk, I included a quote not from a sutta, but from James Joyce, from his short story entitled A Painful Case, in which he describes a kind of meticulous bureaucrat named Mr. Duffy, who's kind of drifting through life colorlessly and aimlessly, cut off from his body and his feelings. And there's a line in that short story, Mr. Duffy lived a little distance from his body, which I always thought was kind of funny at first, but then I realized I can really identify with that, because I think for probably the majority of my life, I've lived not just a little distance from my body, but at times a large distance from my body. And so maybe this doesn't, maybe you have not had the experience of living a little distance from your body, or perhaps maybe at points you've had an experience of meditation and folding from the neck up, kind of a disembodied head. So, yeah, and research from Harvard recently has corroborated that we do, as a culture, tend to live up in our head for a large part of the time. In fact, 47% of the time, according to this Harvard study that was published in Science, 47% of the time we're not really focusing on what we're doing, kind of caught in this rumination cycle and living in the past or in the future. And then the other thing that this study found is that what's worse is this persistent mind wandering into past and future is associated with unhappiness. And we may have had the experience that we feel dominated by a self-critical and self-limiting narrative that we kind of carry around like dead weight in our heads. And at least for me, I often feel stuck in the past or trying to predict the future or other forms of mental time travel. So yeah, poor Mr. Duffy living a little distance from his body, and I'm hoping maybe through this evening we might begin to have some access to tools for living a little closer to our body and to its timeless wisdom. So I wanted to talk a little bit about me, just to frame my own experience before I go into some of these concepts around somatic mindfulness. So I grew up in Northern Virginia in a very standard kind of neighborhood outside of the DC area in Alexandria, Virginia, and did my undergrad degree here at UVA, as Teresa mentioned, and had the privilege of living in one of the lawn rooms during my 4th year. And during that time, I really had a profound experience that changed my life. I was, standing in that lawn room, shaving, looking in the mirror, and then all of a sudden I felt this awareness that was much, much, much larger than just Matt and his little bubble. And, I lost track of time. I was looking in that mirror and I really could not figure out, who is this person? And it was a jarring experience at first of just feeling, out of my body, but also it was an experience that reminded me of a sense of awe that I felt, much younger in my life, when my dad would take my brother and me canoe camping up in the Allagash Wilderness in the North Maine woods. And it was just this vastness of nature, and this is before cell phones, and it was just us and the canoe and the Dinty Moore beef stew, and there wasn't that connection. And I just remember at maybe the age of 5 or 6, just feeling this awe around nature and the same sort of just hugeness and vastness of what our world and universe is. So anyhow, a couple years prior, when I was an undergrad here at UVA, I stumbled upon Yogaville, which is an ashram about an hour south of here. And for some reason, I had decided to become vegetarian. And I went to Integral Yoga Natural Foods. I saw a flyer for Yogaville, and I told myself, there's no way I'm going there. That looks like a cult. And of course, I found myself going there, and just like a fish to water experience, and just felt that sense of yearning for that presence of something much larger and vaster coming back, and ended up living there for a summer, doing a teacher training program. And around the same time, I kind of stumbled into the Dharma. Jeffrey Hopkins, who was the principal translator for the Dalai Lama for many years, was teaching a course here on Buddhist meditation. And again, it was just that feeling of immediate connection, and also the discovery that I was allowed to be gay and spiritual at the same time, because that wasn't something that I was familiar with, being raised Catholic. And I don't want to Catholic bash, but it was a new experience for me. And so that was all great. I met yoga, I met the Dharma, was feeling reconnected to something maybe from a past life. But then unfortunately what happened is my striving type A mind made my yoga practice and meditation practice into a project, a self-improvement project, where I began to see my body as something that needed to be conquered or controlled or disciplined, and even got kind of competitive. I mean, with some of the, I went to India and was staying with a bunch of monks who only ate one meal a day, and I said, I can do that too, and just really took it to the extreme in asceticism, and ended up just being more separate from my body and developing an eating disorder. And it was unfortunate that I took over this great practice with my mind and separated myself from my body even more. And to a certain extent, I had that, pattern with my meditation practice as well. I made it into something where it was all about me trying to control and focus my mind and concentrate and sit motionless in full lotus in the meditation hall for an hour, and definitely not listen to my body. And even ended up exacerbating a knee injury from tennis by forcing myself to sit in full lotus posture and not move. And so yeah, there was an experience of real disconnection from my body and my feelings. And I carried that around in my practice, kind of just let my practice dwindle for a while. And then I was very fortunate about 15 years ago to encounter teachings from the Himalayan Buddhist tradition, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, in a way that helped me connect my mind back to my body. But it's been very difficult to work myself free from these entrenched patterns. And so yeah, that's a little bit about my spiritual autobiography, I guess. And so I found out about a concept that sometimes we hear waking up. The word Buddha means awaken, and there's a sense in practices of somatic mindfulness to wake down into the body, and I have found those teachings so helpful. And I wanted to share a quote from Sukha Siddhi, who is an 11th century yogini and meditation master in the Tibetan tradition. Don't meditate. Don't meditate. Don't meditate with your mind. This mental meditation is just more thinking, keeping you stuck in existence. Release from within, and you will be free. So a lot of what I'm going to be sharing this evening is from this book by one of my teachers, Lama Willa Baker, entitled The Wakeful Body, Somatic Mindfulness as a Path to Freedom. Really a great book. So what is somatic mindfulness? So the definition that Lama Willa in her book has is the body's mindfulness, a relaxed, loving attention, spontaneously experiencing the present moment through the entire body-mind. So the mind can get distracted into the past and future, but the body doesn't. It's always in the present moment. And that's why we put the word timeless in the title for this talk. So the main difference that I see between this model of somatic mindfulness and other perhaps more orthodox models of meditation practice comes in when we get distracted. So the one model of what we do when we're distracted is to bring the attention back to the breath. And so that's kind of like it can be a little bit of a controlling mode, at least in my experience, is I could make that coming back to the breath into something where it felt forceful and there was this feeling of exclusion of, I'm not going to have that thought, I'm going to push that away. So in the somatic mindfulness model, instead of prioritizing control, we release that and then we're drawn back by the body into present moment awareness. And we can be brought back by the body through a focus on the felt sense of groundedness or the feeling of the breath. But it's not like effortful discipline or control, or a redirection of the attention by, a higher executive function. It's rather more a magnetic kind of draw back into the body and its steadiness. And one metaphor that Lama Willa uses is that it's like iron filings being drawn back into a magnet, where the iron filings are like our scattered thoughts, and the magnet is our body. So that's a little bit about the concept of somatic mindfulness. Just looking over because I think I have too much material, so I'm seeing what I can cut. So just another brief quote. This one's from the Hevajra Tantra. Great wisdom lives in the body. So great wisdom lives in the body. Which begs the question, what do we mean by the body? And, for a long time, our cultures were in this sort of Cartesian dualism of we've got a body and we've got a mind, and that's kind of what I experienced in my early years of practice. As I did yoga for my body and I meditated for mind, and the two paths rarely even approached each other. And so, but we know from science over the last 50, 100 years that it's not really accurate anymore to think of having a separate mind and a body in this dualistic way, because the brain and nervous system extend throughout our body, and this mind-body connection phrase used to be all new agey, and now it's just kind of like a household term. And so, this connection between the mind and body is taken a step further in this model of the four kayas. So kayas is a Sanskrit word, and it can mean sometimes translated as body. I prefer layer, as talking about four bodies makes me feel a little disjointed, but sort of four layers of embodiment, or four aspects of ourself. So these four dimensions or layers that are described in yogic Buddhism are, of course, the physical body, the flesh and blood, and then the subtle body, which means the energetic body, and then the truth or awareness body, and then finally the essence or integration body. So these will be on the handout. And I just wanted to go into a brief description of these four layers. So the physical body is sometimes called the earth body, and it's our flesh and blood. And just for a moment, check in with where you feel the body. And there's this subtle difference between the conceptual body and the experiential body. So when I think of Matt, there's what comes to mind is this tall guy who's white and kind of thin. And that's kind of like the conceptual body. But if I say, what's my actual or experiential body? It's something where kind of words aren't there to describe it. There's feeling, there's a sense of energy. It's almost like, trying to look at the tip of your nose, where it's like it's too close. And maybe we can't see the tip of our nose, but it's difficult to see the tip of the nose because it's so close. And that's kind of like this experiential body. It's so close. So that's a little bit about the earth body, the physical body. And then we have next the subtle body, which gets a little bit confusing. Bless you. So this subtle body refers to subtle energy or prana. or called qi in other traditions. So this is, a sense of kind of vibratory aliveness. And it's also the layer of our being that includes feeling and emotion and sensory experience. So let's just take a deep breath together. So exhaling fully, inhaling deeply, and exhaling smoothly. Just noticing if there are any feelings of a subtle vibration or hum in the body. Maybe a slight tingling in the fingers. Yeah, and so that's the subtle body. And, of course, if we do an autopsy, we're not going to find the subtle energy channels. They're more experiential. But that's a little bit of a sense of what this subtle body is referring to. And then the next layer, the third layer, is called Dharmakaya in Sanskrit, or the truth body, or we could think of it as the awareness body. And this is the consciousness layer. Not in a thinking necessarily sort of way, but a sense of being aware that pervades the body. It's almost like a childlike awareness, just a pure awareness, like gazing up at the blue sky. It's vast, luminous. And then this fourth layer of embodiment, it's a tongue twister, Svabhavakaya in Sanskrit, is a little tricky. It can be translated as the integration body or the essence body. And what it essentially is the non-separateness of the other three layers of the physical body, the subtle energetic body, and the awareness body. So they're not separate from each other. It's not like we're in one of these layers at a time. They're simultaneous. And so this integration body, is a sense of how the body, breath, and energy and mind are primordially integrated. Just talk for a couple of more minutes, just to outline this practice of ground that we'll do after the break together. And so this acronym GROUND is a mnemonic that Lama Willa describes, in this book. And this is another thing that's on the handout. And it can be used as a mnemonic to reconnect you to the wisdom of the body in this moment. And it can be used on the spot, wherever we are, at work or at home. And it doesn't have to take a lot of time to do this practice. So each letter in ground stands for something. So there's 6 practices, and they're actually scaffolded onto those 4 layers of embodiment that I just described. So the G in ground stands for ground. It's easy to remember that one. And that's the sense of heaviness and groundedness of your body, and a recollection that, the earth is a resource, as Teresa described in her meditation. And then the R in ground stands for relax. So from this groundedness in the body, we can invite a sense of loosening up and just letting go. So those ground and relax, the first two letters, are connected to the physical body. Then the next two are going to be connected to the subtle or energetic body. So the O in ground stands for open, referring to opening our senses and becoming receptive to everything that we're feeling. And then the U in ground stands for untangle. And this refers to the energetic imprint. And this is an opportunity to, because memories and traumas are held in the body, as Bessel van der Kolk and others have described. And so this U of untangle refers to allowing those memories and traumas that are held in the subtle body as energetic blockages or knots, to allow them to self-liberate. So it's not really I'm going to forcibly untie this energetic knot, as can happen in some traditions of yoga, but rather a befriending and noticing and creating space for self-liberation of those memories and traumas that can be held in the subtle body. So the N in ground stands for nurture, and this is connected to the awareness body. We're invited to attend to the knower of our experience, to an awareness that is simple, clear, non-judgmental, and present. And then the D in ground stands for dissolve, where we allow the separateness between mind, body, and energy to dissolve and melt into a single taste. So that's a brief overview of the four kayas and this ground acronym. So welcome back, everyone. We're going to do a short yoga practice for a couple of minutes. So you're welcome to remain seated in the pews, or you can be standing. And if you're going to stand up, you might sort of exit your row of the pew. This isn't going to be a long practice. So this is a simple practice that can be done in a chair or standing. And it'll be a nice way to transition into our ground practice. Never guided yoga with a mic in my hand, but we'll see what happens. So let's inhale the arms up overhead, and we can even lace the fingers and press the palms up, reaching up. And then over to the side on an exhale. Inhale back up. Exhale over to the other side. Inhale back up. And exhale. Inhale up. And exhale like a tree blowing in the breeze. Inhale up, and one more time. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Inhale, reaching up, and then let's float the arms down and grow roots from the soles of the feet down into the earth. And then from this place of groundedness, we can lace the fingers behind the back, dropping the shoulders under, lifting the heart. Taking some deep breaths to bring space into the heart. Looking up towards the sky. And then let's exhale, begin to tilt forward. If this gets to be too much on the shoulders, we can just release the arms down towards the floor. Or the elbows can be in the hands. The head can be lower than the knees. Sorry. And a couple of more breaths here, enjoying that nice supply, fresh supply of oxygen to the head and to the brain. And then let's release the arms down towards the floor. We can shake out the arms, shake the head gently, yes and no. And then bending the knees, will roll slowly up, one vertebra at a time, with the head being last to come up. Great. Then let's begin to get the energy moving a little bit. If you have space, we can just begin to rotate side to side and give a little tap to the outer hip with the back of the hand. And either keep the head facing forward or we can follow. Maybe inhaling in one direction, exhaling in the other, and just a little bit faster. And then just let the arms naturally come back to center. And see if you can feel a vibratory aliveness in the fingertips. And then let's take our seat. We can also remain standing for this practice if you prefer. This practice can also be done lying down. But just finding a way to sit that supports your well-being. Noticing the points of contact between the body and the earth beneath us. And a quote from Saraha, an 8th century Mahasiddha: "Holy places, shrines, and altars. I've been all over in my travels, but never have I seen a place of pilgrimage more blissful than the body." Seeing if there's a way to invite more bliss into your seated posture. And before we embark on the journey through this ground practice, let's take a moment to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, but also in this body. In this vehicle for awakening. This being in your physical body. In all its natural earthiness and groundedness. And now we'll move from ground, the G in the ground acronym, to R, relax. Just take a moment to notice where tension is held in the body. Maybe in the belly or the jaw, maybe the face. We'll use the breath as a way to release this subtle tension. So we'll take 3 deep breaths together, exhaling fully, then inhale down into the belly, up into the chest. Exhale, slowly releasing tension down into the earth. And again, inhale, belly expands, heart expands. Exhale slowly through the nose. Once more, inhale deeply into the belly, filling the lungs. And exhale to release those ancient tensions. Each exhale, an opportunity to release. Each inhale, an opportunity to awaken. And now we'll move into the subtle body, the energetic body, the feeling body. So allowing the seated posture to adjust if the body calls for it. We'll move into the O of ground, the opening. So feeling your posture lengthen, the crown lifting, the shoulders releasing down, the chest and heart wide open. Starting with your heart area, feel your body and senses open up. Open your eyes, your ears, your nose. Open your mouth. your heart, and your mind. So this is an inner opening, so the eyes may remain closed, the mouth can remain closed, and open at the same time. Holding ourselves in loving self-compassion, allow feeling and emotion to be. Maybe seeing if it's possible to experience the raw feeling without the conceptual valence, without the story that we may create around the feeling. And if the mind wanders into conceptual thought, into past and future, into the story around the feelings, we can allow the breath to bring us back into the subtle body. And then staying with the subtle body, we'll move to the U in ground, untangle. Scan your body and mind. What residue of feeling is present in your subtle body? What anxiety, sadness, loneliness, apathy, or ruminations are present? Whatever you encounter in yourself, notice where it lives in your body. Make room for it with kindness and befriend. And then gently we'll transition from the subtle body into the awareness body or truth body. The N in ground stands for nurture. We may open the eyes and raise our gaze and widen your field of vision, keeping the eyes soft. Relax completely and let your mind expand outward infinitely. Like those images from the James Webb Space Telescope. Be effortless. Nurture your relationship with awareness. And then finally, we'll move to the integration body or essence body, and to the D in ground, which stands for dissolve. We can just stop all the strategies, all the attempts to make things different than they are. Relax all effort and let all practices just melt into space. Allow the separation between mind and body and energy dissolve. Allow the separation between self and world dissolve. Dwell in the great oneness beyond description and beyond thought. So, thank you for sharing in that practice. So maybe we can just close with a brief dedication of merit. May the pure, brilliant sun of bodhicitta, or awakened heart-mind, dawn in each and every heart and mind, dispelling the darkness of suffering and confusion unstoppably, until all are fully illumined and awakened. Thank you so much.